I want to welcome you. For those of you that are watching, probably most of you have watched a prior program, and so this is probably getting extremely repetitive for you. But for those of you that may not have watched another program, we want to take a minute to introduce ourselves. I am Pastor Randy McAllister. This is my wife, Cindy. We pastor Valley Christian Fellowship in Orrville, Washington, as well as Republic, Washington. And on my right is Brian and Joni Wright, because they're always right.
Right.
And
Mr.
anyway,
Right.
Brian is our men's director of Timothy House, which is our men's recovery ministry to men that have had addiction, other life-controlling problems. His wife, Joni, is the assistant director of Ruth's House of Hope. She's also a graduate of Ruth's House of Hope. My wife, Cindy, is the director of Ruth's House of Hope, and also been my wife for 29 years. Yeah. And this is Shine Morrison. Shine Morrison is on our pastoral staff as well as worship leader, and she runs our radio ministry, KGTC Radio 93.1 FM. You can go there and listen to it live if you're in the area, or you can listen to it over the internet as well, and there is a website as well. And then Catherine Castro, she is our secretary-treasurer, as well as her and her husband Victor are deacons in our church, and they're also both teachers and preachers of the Word of God, as well as everybody at this table teaches and preaches the Word of God. Yes. So I want to tell you something. With that said, it's pretty miraculous that we can do this together without running over the top of each other, because we all individually teach and preach, and so we all have our own ministry. Very, very grateful. I'm very, very grateful as a leader and as a pastor to have these wonderful people around our life. And so I want to welcome you. If you've watched prior programs, which I'm sure most of you have, probably most of you are people that attend Valley Christian Fellowship, whether you're in Republic or in Orrville. And so we want to welcome you. For those of you that have never been to our church or maybe don't even live in the area, we want to welcome you as well. We know that we have been told that family members of our church have family members from California, Alabama, all over different places that have been watching the ministry that's being put out by our body. And so we believe that this is a unique time in the history of the United States of America. And I'm sorry that I'm laughing. We just had our cameraman drop something, and so I apologize. This is not good for me, because if I get laughing, sometimes I can't stop. He just peeked his head over the top. It's just terrible. Anyway, we want to also thank Josh for him being here and doing this for us. And so, at any rate, we have been studying the peace of God for the most part. We have been dealing with the peace of God all week long, and I think it's predominantly what people need in this season, whether you're a believer or not. If you're an unbeliever, hopefully before this whole tragic event is over, I believe there's millions of people that will come to the Lord and that will find the peace of Jesus as a result of this thing that we're going through. As Catherine said a couple of programs ago, we get to be a part of history. Yeah. This is the United States. The last time we were quarantined was 1918. That's 102 years ago was the last time. In fact, I think there's only been 2 quarantines in our nation's history, then and now. And this being much, much more severe than that. And so we count it, I know this is crazy, but we count it a privilege that God has put us in a position, and I'm sure there are ministries all over the world that feel the same way, that is, God has maneuvered and put us in a position where we're able to take this thing that Satan means for evil and turn it around. That's right. And God's going to use it for good. I want to talk about the things that happen in peace. And I just want to say, coming out of Isaiah chapter 64, one of the things that has been on my mind and in my spirit, and I actually said this to my wife a couple of days ago, that I wondered if God wasn't doing this around the world, because we are people that, because of how fast our life is going, the pursuit of success, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of a lot of other things, that we don't slow down. Our bodies need rest. Our minds need rest. Our emotions need rest. And we live, the world that we live in lives at a high pace. And I halfway wonder, did God allow this in order to slow people down? If you're a Washingtonian, if you're in California, you're already quarantined to your home. We as Washingtonians, we may be facing that. Possibly by the time you see this program, we might actually be under home quarantine here in the state of Washington. I think there's 3 states that have high numbers of coronavirus. That's California, Washington, and New York. And so we may be very well quarantined. But if we are, God even has a purpose in that.
That's right.
Moms, dads, children, they have to spend time together. Families get to be families again. I believe we're going to come out of this much stronger, much better. I believe that we're going to start hanging a hold or taking a hold of values maybe that we've lost. But I want to look at a couple of things that I think can come out of this as far as the peace of God and time with the Lord is concerned. And that's in Isaiah chapter 64, and I want to read verse 4. And I think that the power of this verse, I hope it sinks in. It says, "For since the beginning of the world, men have not heard nor perceived by their natural ear, neither from their natural eye have seen, O God, beside thee what you have prepared for him that waits for him." This verse is saying that never anybody, no one since the beginning of the world has ever gotten a hold of the purpose of God, the mind of God, the will of God, the direction of God, the revelation of God. Nobody has ever gotten it through natural means. No one. Nobody was smart enough. Right. Nobody was intelligent enough. Nobody could read it in a book. There's only one way that you come to see what can't be seen. There's only one way you get to know what can't be known. You know what that way is? Time with the Lord. Yeah. There is no other way. This is an opportunity. Listen, I don't know what we're looking at as a nation, what we're looking at as a community, what we're looking at as a state. I don't know any of that. But I know one thing. It's your decision. It's my decision. It's our decision what we do with this time. That's right. If you indeed are quarantined, if you're a Californian, you're already quarantined. If we may be quarantined, we don't know. But I'm going to tell you something. You can take this time. I remember listening to David Wilkerson that early in his ministry, he had just gone to New York City and started Teen Challenge, and he got very, very sick. He said, nobody was able to diagnose what I had. They couldn't do anything for me. He said, I laid in a hospital in Brooklyn week after week after week after week. And he said, for the first couple of weeks, I was angry. I was upset. I was frustrated. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I couldn't get back to ministry. But he said, God got a hold of me, and I began to spend time with the Lord. And I began to use that hospital room and that hospital bed to seek God. And God began to open up things I would have never known. And he said, all of a sudden one day, I coughed up something out of my lungs. He said it was as big around as a large marble. And he said it was hard and it was black. And he said, when I coughed that up out of my lungs, I was better in the same day they released me. Wow. He said, I don't know what that was. But he said, when that came out of my body, I was healed. Wow. And he said, looking back on that, I look at that moment in my life as God slowing me down and saying, and he said God had been telling him before this ever happened, David, slow down, spend time with me, get alone with me. He said, I was too busy to. Wow. And he said, I felt like God said, if you're not going to slow down, I'll slow you down. Yes. And then out of that came so much of what God would do in David's future. And I believe this is something that is powerful for us, is that we can come out of this having revelation. We can come out of this with a sense of the future that we may have never had before. I know, Joni, just as we finished the last program, you were talking about a moment you had in your home with your kids, I'm sure borrowing what the next 6 weeks is going to look like. And I think all of us are probably going to have moments where we do that. I know that I thank God this didn't happen 10 years ago. Yeah. I would have been giving birth to peptic ulcers. I really would have. But God has just changed me. And I've told my wife over and over that I feel like God has prepared me for this moment. I feel like all of the years that many of us have spent pursuing God and pursuing the presence of God. God saw all of this. This is where that all comes into play. So remember this, no one since the beginning of the world has ever been able to perceive with their natural eye or hear with their natural ear or understand the mind or the revelatory will of God. We all got it the same way. It only comes one way, and that is by desperation, which brings revelation. God opens your divine understanding. If you have nothing else, I speak to you that might be laid off. I speak to you that might be at home. Listen, you can worry or you can worship.
That's right.
You can get before God or you can just let your mind spin with the what ifs. And I challenge you, I don't challenge you, I implore you to get before God. As we were talking a couple days ago, flip the flow and take what the devil meant to just torment your mind and get alone with God. Spend extra time with the Lord. Get into this book that can speak to you and show you like no other time in your life. Anybody?
Like Joni, she has a little kids and a teenage kids. So this time you're busy, but some of us, like us, we don't have little kids.
No.
So if we
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus. I know. But if you're not trying to pursue God's presence, you get into the boredom.
Yeah.
Then you get into the something else.
That's
you don't
right.
want
Come
to.
on, Shane.
I had a conversation at the ladies' meeting other day. And this lady, she doesn't have little kids, but she said, when you're in a church, when you're in a Bible study like this, and you don't have a time thinking about anything else, but suddenly you're just sitting in the home doing nothing, then I haven't smoked for this long, then suddenly I was thinking about smoking. That's the way it works if you're not getting busy, getting to the presence of God. So stay busy. Seek people who are in the presence of God and cultivate your hunger.
That's right. Amen.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And I going back to what you were saying in the context of that verse in Romans, or no, I think it's in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. It goes on, no eye has seen, no ear has heard.
Come on.
No mind has understood what God has prepared for those who love him. And then if you were to continue on in that verse, see, we don't just stop there.
Yeah.
If you continue on in the verse, the Bible talks about, and God has revealed these things to us by his Spirit.
Yes, come
And
on.
so in other words, I mean, I look at it like this, that, this is a time, in the armor of God, it talks about the evil day. Well, that's a appointed time. Yeah. And it makes in reference to having the shoes of the gospel of peace. And I just believe that this is a time, appointed time for a rest, a season of rest, of peace, in the sense of study up. I know for me, it's like, the opportunity of a lifetime sometimes is the lifetime of the opportunity. This is like an opportunity for whatever, it might be 6 weeks or whatever it might be. But the bottom line is taking advantage of this time, soaking in the presence of God. And I say this to a lot of the TH students. This is, because TH is Timothy House, Ruth House, whatever. It's a 1 year of commitment of time where you can sit and just at the feet of Jesus and just soak into the presence of God.
Come on.
And for anybody out there that's a born again believer, this is a time to really just soak in the presence of God.
That's good.
Amen.
Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. James 3:18. Talking about what God does in peace. James 3:18 says, and I'll tell you as soon as I get there. Are you there, Cindy?
Yes.
You want to read it?
It said, James 3:18 says, and the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace.
I believe I'm going to read out of the King James. It says, the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. The word peace there means somebody that has stopped trying. Not that there's not an effort to be righteous, but you've stopped putting faith in your ability to be righteous by yourself. And in that place is God, where God begins to sow into your life the fruit of righteousness. Listen, when you have peace, when you begin to pursue peace, God can begin to sow into your life the fruit of righteousness. And the fruits of righteousness are just so explosive. They're so varied. It's hard to wrap your mind around all of what righteousness brings to you. But righteousness brings to you peace of mind. Righteousness can bring to you healing, physical healing. Righteousness can bring to you miracles of salvation in your family. I mean, man, this time, I really believe that one of the main reasons, and we've already said it, that God is allowing this, is just to slow people down.
Yeah.
Is to make people be able to really contemplate God, their family, even their marriages, their children.
True.
I really believe that. I believe one of the ways that Americans distract themselves is just by being busy.
Yeah.
We just distract ourselves by being busy.
Yeah.
Well, and along with that, it could also be God trying to show us where our faith is.
Yes.
I mean,
Amen to that.
is our faith in Him,
It's true.
or is it in stockpiling our houses
Yeah.
in a moment of disaster
Amen.
or chaos and stuff? You know, and what a merciful thing of God to show us, because
Yeah.
He does. He gives us warnings. He shows us because He doesn't want to leave us there.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I would take this as a time of reflection where, you know, and you may be a Christian, but you're not living in peace, you know.
Yeah.
So there is that. You're not living effective Christianity. And maybe this is, you know, God trying to get your attention, or our attention as a body, as the bride of Christ, to show us where we've drifted off to, and just trying to realign us back with His Spirit, with His mind, and reunite us as a country, as a community, as a body of believers, as, you know, the Gentiles and the Jew. You know, there's, you know, I see a great opportunity for our country to become united again, because
right.
we cannot be divided in this time.
That's right.
And also, I was thinking about, you know, we have this as being shut in, like Noah was on the ark. You know, he was
That's
shut
good.
in,
That's good.
and he got to be in the constant presence of God.
That's right.
And we don't have to sit and wait for the 3 o'clock news to find out what our future is.
Come on.
That's right.
Come on.
We can have a moment
Yeah.
right here and have the mind of God that, like we just read in Isaiah, we cannot receive it by natural means. So we're not going to receive what God has for us by turning on Fox News or CNN News, which are two news stations that I've found out in the last few days. They are completely opposite of each other.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
so bizarre how, you know, but yeah, so we don't have to wait for,
That's
you know,
right.
a declaration from our governor or President
That's
Trump.
right.
We get to go to the God who's in
That's
all
right.
control.
Yeah.
So.
You know, you bring up a good point, Catherine, that maybe God brought this upon us to unite us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in this, there is no Democrats and
Exactly.
Republicans.
Yeah.
They're
You know,
working together.
that has to all be put to the side.
Right.
I was talking to a dear brother, we all know him, pastor here in our community, that has, he was diagnosed with cancer, brain cancer, or brain tumor. They took the tumor out. They found out that the tumor is malignant. And I was just texting him back and forth the other day, praying for him. But I told him, I said, there is no denominations now.
No.
There is no church buildings.
Right.
There is no, well, I attend here and I go there, or I pastor. It's only the kingdom.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
brothers and sisters.
That's right.
What this has done for America, thank God it has done it for us, is that there is no more Democrat and Republican. That's all went by the wayside. Now we're just one people fighting something that's deadly, fighting something that is threatening to take the life of millions of us. That's right, absolutely. And I thank God for that. I even wonder, they were predicting this election cycle to be the most violent and vile that the United States of America had ever known. And if God had to do this to keep that from happening, then thank God.
Yes.
Because what this has made us remember is when push comes to shove, that is all secondary.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
now you've got millions of Americans facing unemployment.
That's right.
You've got millions of Americans that are going to need not only help from the government, but help from your neighbor. You know, I think even as a church, we are probably going to be sitting down as leadership. We had plans, we had things we were going to do. We don't know, they may still happen, they may not happen. But right now, our priority is shepherding a body through this tragedy. Our families, the families that attend. Yes, and our community. You know, I know that I had a pastor tell me yesterday that he had elderly people in his church that were taking groceries to other elderly people and sitting them on their porch and walking away so they didn't expose them. But here they are, elderly people risking their own health to go out and help other people. You know, and I know in our neighborhood that I am going to start going around and just putting a note on a door or whatever and saying, hey, you know, I don't want to invade your home, or I don't want you to be scared of me bringing you sickness or something, but I want you to know we're available. So here's a note on your porch if you need anything, you know, giving them our phone number. That's something we all can do, you know. And so I agree with you. I think that like I said, and I know we've talked about this all week, but there is going to be many, many, many reasons we're going to be able to look back and see why God allowed this to happen in our life. It brings us back to the core things that are important in family, in community, in ministry. It's not about buildings, bucks, and bodies. It's about people. It's about their families. It's about what they're going through. It's about being able to minister, you know, where people need it the most. And I just think, it takes something like this. Unfortunately, sometimes it takes something like this to make us remember that.
The good news is we may not know what tomorrow holds,
But
but we know who
That's right.
holds
Come
the
on.
tomorrow.
Come on, amen. You know, I was thinking about this. We have mentioned this several times in the last week. We have mentioned the Prince of Peace. A lot of people don't realize where that term, why it is so powerful. The reason it's so powerful is under monarchies, the way they did things is the king and the queen, everything they distributed to their subjects came through the prince. So no matter how many sons they had, they distributed the princes through the land, and everything that made it from the monarch, the powerful people, everything they wanted to give to the people came through the prince. It came through their sons. And so when we talk about the Prince of Peace, it means Jesus is our access to everything heaven owns. Everything heaven has is given to us through Jesus the Son. All of its reservoir of power, peace, promises, you know, things we need, food, money, whatever it is. You know, Joni, I was going to say this to you. I'm not saying this is God, but I think my own opinion, I'm not saying it's God's opinion, my own opinion, you know this, is that I think God has been telling you for a while to let your job go and to just trust Him and to trust
Or at
with
least
you.
to slow down.
Yeah, to slow down. And I've even said that I thought it had a part to do with battles in your health. And maybe this is when you come out on the other. I know. By the way, I noticed you the other day in Sunday school, last Sunday morning. I noticed you putting that roller painkiller stuff on. You were rolling it on your neck during Sunday school, and Cindy and I were watching you do that, and I knew you were in pain, and I can tell by your face when you're in pain, and I just think that maybe what is making other people sick is going to bring you healing.
Maybe.
What
I am not the reason for the coronavirus.
no. What I mean is, in this thing that seems so horrible, that maybe you're going to come out of it and say, "Hey, I don't have any pain."
We're going to see so many good things come out of this.
I believe
I know
that
my
too.
daughter said that, you know, her and her kids are at a whole new level of time together and making it quality, and she's taking time. Because normally she's cooking dinner while they're doing homework. She's a single mom, unfortunately, and so, you know, she's busy cooking dinner while the kids are doing homework, and she's answering questions and everything. And so now the kids are home. They've got their homework done, and so she's teaching them to cook and
That's
having
awesome.
them cut up
That's
vegetables
awesome.
and do things. And so they have their own little home economics class, and it's bringing a whole new level
Come on.
of learning, but
Come on.
bonding.
Yes.
You know, where families, I know Scotty and Joni, they're right. Joni needs recess 3 times a day. So that's what she tells me. She goes, I need a recess. And so she leaves her end of they live in the north end of our Ruth's House of Hope building. They have a nice home at the end. Well, anyways, she comes through her door and shuts it through the foyer of the building, and into our door and shuts it. And she's on recess when she's at Ruth's house with the girls. Cracks me up. But Scotty is in heaven having mom around,
Yeah, I
and
bet.
let's do this and let's do that.
Yeah.
And so, there are good things
Yes.
that are coming, and people
Yes,
are
already.
sharing all over social media fun ideas that they've come up with, so other parents can have ideas to do
That's right.
with their kids, and projects for the kids to do when mom and dad have to work.
Yeah,
And so there are good things we're already
Yeah,
seeing
yeah,
coming out
amen.
of this, just
Amen.
in the natural as well as in the spiritual. People are tuning in to YouTube and Facebook and podcasts and things in great numbers that never were before, just seeing like what is happening
Yeah,
right now in our
everybody's
nation,
doing
what
it,
is going on. And if anybody has an answer to why toilet paper was attacked first,
I want to know.
please get a hold of us. Leave us
right.
a note on our
That's
website.
right.
We still are baffled because it's not a toilet paper virus.
I know.
And so anyway, just throwing that out there to lighten the moment.
Right.
If anybody knows, we would like that revelation.
Yes.
So there you go.
I want to take, we only have a couple of minutes left, but I want to finish this program because I think this is the predominant thing on my heart as we finish. And I think that this is on the minds of a lot of people. You and I are human, and money is on the mind of a lot of people. How are we going to survive? How are we going to get through this? In the Song of Solomon, it is one of my favorite books. It's not a well-known book, but it's one of my favorite books. I look forward to it every time that I'm reading the Old Testament. But in verse 7 of chapter 3, it says, "Behold his bed, which is Solomon's. 80 valiant men are about it, of the valiant men of Israel. They all hold swords, being expert in war. Every man had his sword upon his sword upon his thigh, because of fear in the night." And I want to stop right there. So a lot of people don't. There's a debate whether this was actually a traveling bed of Solomon or whether it was a traveling throne. I actually think it was both, because in that day monarchs had couches that they laid on, and Solomon really didn't need a throne because he was the personage of the king. So it didn't matter whether he was on a bed or a throne. Wherever he went, there was power. What I'm trying to say is that a bed is a type of the peace of God, and in the peace of God, Solomon is a type of the provision of God. You have the provision of God. Where God gives rest, God doesn't give you rest that's a lie. God doesn't tell you, hey, rest in me, and then not be able to carry through and meet the needs that are causing you worry.
That's right.
I'm going to say this. I don't know where it's going to come from. I don't know how. But I'm telling you, I know this. My wife and I have never made a lot of money per year, but God has been faithful, more than faithful, to us through the years. God has not only never forsaken us, God has shocked us with his faithfulness. What we have, what we own, if you put that against what we make, they don't come together. They just don't make any sense. God is going, I realize my words could be like a pinprick on an elephant as far as your fears, but God will provide for you. I want to leave you with this before we leave this series of programs this week. God is your provider. Amen. God is going to take, wherever God goes, this traveling throne, wherever Solomon was, the power of Solomon, that's where it was, is where he went. Wherever God's presence is, if God has given you peace, if you are going to God for peace, God will not only give you peace, God will give you provision. God is going to meet your every need in this. Let me just say this. This was on my mind. I've got 30 seconds. This is on my mind in prayer this morning. You can have every need met by a paycheck. That does not bring faith to you.
That's right.
What brings faith to you is when you don't have a paycheck and God meets your need. That's what brings faith in God. God's going to build your faith through this time. God's going to be faithful to you. Bless you.